My my next segment that I wanted to talk about because you're a strength coach, and I know that you're not going to be able to like know specifically in this case, but just wanted to get the mindset and like the philosophy of just moving up, right? And I know that this is probably like a huge move up, and I don't know if you kind of worked with any fighter, any specifics of this, but Terence is thinking about going from 154 to 168,
Yeah.
and I already know that, he's jumped up multiple weight classes already.
Mhm.
So it's and like you mentioned earlier in the Fulton Brandon Figueroa case, like the IQ, is what's gonna win what you feel is gonna win the fight. Well, one of the aspects of the win the fight that's very important. But moving that type of kind of body from a position of that much, how do you do it and how do you do it right?
Well, all right. Are we speaking in a sense of if Crawford was my fighter, how we would do it? Or are you asking just a general question like how a fighter would do it?
I guess in both cases, you know what I mean? Just in the case of just like, I guess, because, this topic will probably be on like Crawford and Canelo specifically, right?
100%.
But just in general, because I know that, you're a strength coach in most
Yeah.
cases, weight cutting and all that stuff is your specialty. So,
Mhm.
like, what is the right way to, I guess, do it? And if you
So, all
have
right.
an
So,
example.
so there's a couple ways to do it. First off, Crawford coming up in weight to fight Canelo at we're talking 168 or
Yeah.
175. Okay, 168. So that's a weight that Canelo's already comfortable in. I want people to understand the difference in gaining and losing. Okay. Canelo, for the ballpark, 168. So let's just say he walks around 190. Okay. Let's just say he walks around 190. He's coming down from a much heavier weight to reduce his body fat and his athletic performance in an overall perspective to perform at a weight that he's used to performing at. Sparring at 190, sparring at 180, sparring at 170 is completely different because when you're sparring, you're working on specific stuff. Your coach might sit there and say, "Hey, listen, I know he's a big person, he's bigger, but I want you to work on head movement today." You might get touched up a few times. You might go home a couple black eyes. That doesn't mean you got your ass whooped. That just means that you worked on specific stuff. So let's pause it there. Now we're talking about Crawford. Crawford has come from 140, 147, 154. He's going to skip 60 and go straight to 68. So let's just say Crawford walks around 180. Okay. Walks around 180. He's going to come down those 12 pounds, make it 68. He ate his way up to 180. Understand that. He didn't work out his way up to 180. That's the difference. So if you're just going to eat your way up to a heavier weight, assuming because you sparred heavier guys that you can perform at a top level against a guy who's been there numerous times, very comfortable with this weight, and coming down from a heavier weight, that's a whole different animal. We're talking, the last 2 weeks of every camp is always the most critical time because that's where the most dumbest things can go wrong. It could be weight, it could be sickness, it could be injury, it could be anything. So with Crawford being at 154, however much he weighs. Now, one thing I do give Crawford, he's incredibly athletic. He's not just into boxing. He does wrestling. He does weight train. You know what I mean? And he has a good strength coach. He has a good strength team. He has Bomac. So I understand how they can all work together to create this like this super fighter. But it's super hard to come from 154 all the way to 68 within a specific time frame and perform as if you were at 147, 140, 147, 154. We already seen what happened when he went from 147 to 154, right? It wasn't a bad performance. But it kind of took away that Crawford got hit with good shots. He took it well. Crawford also gave him some good shots. He took it well. What you think is going to happen at 168? Canelo's been hit by Triple G, one of the hardest punches in boxing. You mean to tell me that Crawford's going to go up there and just clean him out? Nah, that's not happening. So it's a lot harder. Now, do I think that the athleticism of Crawford will give Canelo problems? Yeah, I do agree with that because if you really look at it from an overall picture, Canelo fighting Crawford would be Crawford would be the most athletic, skilled, and I say higher IQ fighter than he has fought since Floyd. We could even break down a resume. You know what I mean? To see where that is. So yeah, it's Crawford has the skill to do what he's supposed to do. But I just think that if he goes from 54, skips 60, goes to 68, then steps on a scale, he comes in under. So let's just say he comes in 65. Then he hydrates to what? What's he going to hydrate to? 175? 160, 178? You walk around in that weight. Now you fight at that weight and go ahead and try to see what happens when you go in there with a top competitor like Canelo. Not just Canelo though. We'll just say anybody. You know what I mean? So that's really the difference of all this. Like that's what sets the difference. It's harder to gain the weight to put yourself in a specific level than to lose the weight and maintain that level. Crawford has a slim build, right? So for most people who are slim fit, these guys got six packs even if they over there and they're completely out of shape. That's what they do, right? But for people with that build, it's harder to gain, but it's so much easier to lose. Now you have a guy like Canelo, you got a guy like Cotto, who has that stocky, compact frame. It's easier to gain, but harder to lose and get ripped up. You see what I'm saying? So that's what it all comes down to. It comes down to how you prepared for this and what did you do in the off season to prepare for this type of fight. That's where it all comes down to. Most of these fighters, they hire a strength coach when it's time for camp. Then the strength coach normally has like the personal training type of routines. All right, give me like, give me lunges. All right, now give me squats. All right, now let's bench press. That shit you could do in the fucking off season. How are we really developing this camp that's gonna structure to that opponent? That's where I want to see.
Do you feel because, he's gaining essentially what you said, he's going up versus cutting down, that it's wise to maybe just not even make the 168 limit and probably just come in a little bit under and just say, hey,
No, it'll be bad for him to come in under.
so he
Think
should
about
go
it.
into 168. Like he
Yeah,
should.
I mean, he should really try to. If he's already listen. Crawford wins or lose, he's going in the Hall of Fame. Nothing to talk about. But I understand what Crawford's doing. He wants to go out with a bang and put a stamp on that legacy. Regardless, win or lose, the man had the courage, the heart to go from 140 and go up to fight this man. And he's been calling him out for a while. So you got to give credit when credit due. But we all seen what happened with Kell Brook when he moved up. We all seen what happened to Amir Khan when he moved up. Not comparing Crawford to any of these two guys, but we seen what happened. You know what I mean? The weight difference is different. We seen what happened to Canelo when he moved up to 75. It's not like he's going up in weight and picking the weakest link to gain a belt out of it. Like, Roy Jones back then had moved up from the weight classes that he moved up. Roy was continuously moving up in weight from welterweight, no, from junior middleweight all the way up to heavyweight. That was the way he did that. Look about how he did it. He went for per weight class and competed at each weight. When he went to heavyweight, you think he stayed at heavyweight? No, he fought at the time who was the most beatable guy, which was what's his name, John Ruiz, I believe. He beat him, went back down, but guess what? He got a belt at that weight class. So it's different. Crawford is just going cold turkey saying, all right, listen, I want the best, which he should. But it's a lot harder than what it turns out to be to go from 47, 54, and then your diet has to change, your lifestyle has to change. Now you gotta change, like the calorie intake that you're bringing in. You know what I mean? Like it's just so much behind it to where Canelo could just be like, all right, my calorie deficit is such and such, and I'm now gonna come down X amount of pounds per week, this and this and that, but he still feels strong. Come on, man. It's much, much harder.
Well, what do you think about? I guess I bring this up, and a lot of people haven't really used this comparison, right? I guess there was Bernard Hopkins, right? Bernard was older, in his career, right? So Terrence is like 37 in this
Yeah.
case, and he fights a young Antonio Tarver. Tarver I believe is younger than him, and he goes from 160 up to 175.
Hmm.
And this is after Tarver goes and knocks out a Roy Jones Jr.
Hmm.
So he was able to go in there and put on that weight and essentially dominate Tarver, across, that. And I know there's special occasions, other fighters have jumped up multiple weight classes or skipped and done it, but it's practically a rarity and it's almost impossible. So, but using Bernard and Jermaine Taylor, I mean Bernard and Antonio Tarver, why was it able to work with Bernard Hopkins, an older person moving up in weight and fighting a guy like Tarver?
Well, Bernard has the style where he takes less punishment. He's not necessarily boxing. He just does little veteran stuff to start breaking his opponent down. Like he'll do nice little clinches, little shots to the stomach, little short shots to the stomach, and then he'll go on and continuously break the fighter down. But that's not the case here. Crawford is incredibly athletic. Like if we're really going to talk about who's more athletic between Bernard Hopkins or Terence Crawford, we got to go with Terence Crawford. You
For
know what I'm
sure.
saying? Like the man, his deadlift is pretty good, and he wrestled. Like the guy is an actual machine. You understand what I'm saying? So it's different. The one thing that is concerning is that we've seen what happens when Crawford gets hit with a good shot. He likes to get it back. You gonna actually go toe to toe, blow for blow with Canelo, or you gonna just take it smart and say, all right, that was a good shot. I'm gonna get that back later, and I'm gonna start setting all this up.
What if he does? What if he does?
And if he
Then
does, I
does
mean,
that
if we could play the if game all day,
no,
bro.
but I'm just saying like is that his only is that because this ain't the first time I've heard that. It's like is that his one kryptonite? Like what if he's like, I ain't gonna get that back? Is that gonna change the dynamics completely? Because with Terrence, if he's a get back guy,
Mhm.
getting back with Canelo, I mean it's waging war, you know what I mean? And
Mhm.
so, but if he eliminates that at the weight,
I
he's
mean,
going up.
let's just say he does eliminate it. It's still a great fight, man. It's still a good fight because, like I said, Canelo is not the same Canelo that he was 3, 4 years ago. This is not the same Canelo that fought Danny Jacobs and was doing all this crazy head movement. You understand what I'm saying? He's possibly the only Mexican from Mexico fighter who fights like that. I never seen nobody else coming from Mexico that can fight like that, like the way he fights. All that head movement, turning the shoulder, catching shots, and everything else. Come on, bro. No one does that. But it's great that Reynoso, Canelo, they all learn. It's like they're a student of the game. So it's like they're learning from different people. They're learning from their fights. They're not going into the next fight the same way. You understand what I'm saying? So it's a tad bit different. Like he's from there. He turned pro out there. What, 15 years old? So the same time that he turned pro at 15, Crawford was already in the amateurs. You know what I mean? So it's like, yeah, we know that Crawford's what, 37, you said? that's fair, but he don't really move around like he's 37. He still moves around like he's young because Crawford really never took that much punishment anyway. And he's focused. Like the man is I can't sleep on Crawford, like regardless of everything in the past between the whole boots thing and everything else. That's not an easy fight, bro. Like that man comes to fight. He is a dog. He has a great background, and I just still will stand firmly. And I think that him coming from 40, 47, 54, skipping weight classes, go to 68 within the time frame that he has, it's not enough time to prepare for Canelo. Now, if you give it a year, we're talking a little different. We're talking 8 months, a little bit different. You know what I'm saying? It depends when this fight is going to happen. Because they're talking what, September?
I'm not listening to anything online because,
Yeah, so it's okay. Let's
this
just
shit
say
all.
September. That's 9 months. That's 9 months. That's a good enough time to put on exactly the amount of weight you need to put on, but you're not competing at that level. You're not competing at that weight. Like he could gain all that weight and healthy, you know what I mean, with 12 weeks, 16 weeks maybe. You know what I mean? He could put that weight on, that mass on. But again, like I said, his body frame is so thin that it would be much harder for him to gain. I see it at fitness gyms all the time when I used to work at fitness gyms. All these slim guys that are already like ripped say, "Oh man, I'm trying to put on 10, 15 pounds, man. It's hard for me." It's a common thing. You understand what I'm saying? So I just think it's going to be a little harder than what it is. I think skill for skill, I think that's a great matchup. Um, and again, I think Canelo hasn't faced anybody like this since Floyd. And I'm not taking nothing from Lara. I'm not taking nothing from Triple G. I'm not taking nothing from Danny Jacobs, from all these guys. I'm not taking nothing away from them. But I'm just saying, with the caliber of what we're facing, I think that a purebred boxer like that hasn't been in Canelo's opposition rank since what? Floyd, I would say.